My other half has put me off getting married. Am I being too closed-minded? We have been together just over 3.5 years. The subject has come up a few times, as at least 3 couples we know have got engaged. As well as more on social media. When we first got together and spoke about the future, I said I'd always liked the idea of being engaged by the 5-year mark, as that's a reasonable amount of time to know if you want to spend your life with that person. We'll come back to this later. Well, the conversation swayed this way last summer, near the time of an engagement and a wedding reception we went to. He said he was feeling a lot of pressure as other people were doing it, and the 5-year deadline. Quite angry on the subject and a snappy tone. I lightly said 10 years. He said it's when I'm ready. He also mentioned the fact we have a mortgage, and that should be enough to show he wants to spend his life with me. Well, it worked. All of that sparked an epiphany and made me newly realize I don't want that at all now. The house is enough of a commitment. If the whole subject had him that annoyed and worked up, I couldn't possibly pressure him into it. It's gone from maybe one day to the idea now terrifying me and running 5 miles in the other direction. Fast forward to his sibling getting engaged last year. They have been together less time than we have. We spoke that day too, and I expressed how I don't want him to do it just because others are, and that he's completely off the hook, as now I don't ever expect that, and don't want it at all. Which does admittedly hurt a bit, as I always hoped I would get married one day, but now too anxious about it, as he's been so against it, and consent is extremely important. Negative tones on more than one occasion. I once played a song in the car I would have loved as a first dance song. He got a call and couldn't turn it off fast enough, didn't even give it a chance. I would now think he felt obligated to instead of wanting to. Every new engagement post puts me off even more. He then said stuff along the lines of he doesn't want it to be never, and now he's scared that if he's ready at some point, that I'll say no. Wedding planning for all of these couples we know has commenced, and I'm extremely happy for all of them, but it's a sore subject in a sense if me and O are talking to them about it and they ask what we would do. He kind of goes along. I pause and think a bit more. I just tend to fob people off with we can't afford it, that works for now. I also mentioned that 5-year thing from earlier. Turns out he thought I meant married by 5 years. I never said that, just a proposal. As soon as I cleared that up there was a bit of silence. His running joke with others is that he'd go to a pawn shop for the ring. I know it's not about what you spend, but I'd rather not have one at all as opposed to one that's probably been freshly grave robbed. Overall, I think it's been on his mind due to me now being put off and he's wanting what he can't have. Part of me feels sad that I, mostly, don't want it anymore, but I also wouldn't want it to be when I'm what I deem too old, i.e. having wrinkles. More socially acceptable for a second wedding, not the first/only. If it took anywhere near 10 years to ask, it would be an automatic no too. It shouldn't take a decade to know you want to spend your life with someone. If you got this far, thank you, and I welcome all opinions. Comnet. How is the house a commitment to your relationship? It's a tax deduction. Are you both on the mortgage? I hope you worked with an attorney to address what happens if you break up. The fact is, you're lying to him when you say you don't want it. That's not helpful for you or him or your relationship. I think you two need to stop being so black and white. Stop with it has to be done by X years, I don't want it at all, etc. Have an actual conversation with him where you're open and honest about how you feel. Don't completely put it on the table or take it off. Let things happen naturally. If it is actually important to you to get married, be honest about it. This is the sort of thing that breeds hurt and resentment. You need to address it now. Allow him to change over time. He may have had an emotional reaction to the idea at first and gradually worked through some things internally. I think what's really relevant here is thorough communication and understanding, so that you can be sure that's what is happening if it is, and then you can feel comfortable again. Well, I waited 17 years to get asked, so. Not everyone needs to get formally married. If it isn't important to you, then don't do it. However, please make sure you have everything taken care of legally. That you both have medical power or attorney, wills and anything else you need just in case something tragic happens. Otherwise you may find yourself in a mess. That was our primary reason for getting married. To clarify inheritance and to get me on his health insurance. It didn't change anything else about our relationship. An hour in the afternoon with a friend who officiated and it was over. And it was perfect. Sometimes I think people way other think getting married. Not going to sit here and defend him. But that pressure the man feels, is very real. It can come in all forms. Seeing everything around you blossom and the desire to want that for yourselves. That is a lot to deal with when the man is expected to be the one to put things in motion on all fronts. However, the discussion about engaging should be an open conversation. One that is easy to have. Buying a house together and sharing mortgage payments. The relationship can feel incomplete when there is no ring on finger. Nothing wrong with a long engagement. But if you genuinely want it, you can't keep acting unbothered by it like you don't care what happens. You have to speak up and put it on the table. From my experience, going ring shopping together was one of the most stress-relieving parts about it. So, if that is something you're okay with, might want to entertain. Go together, look at a bunch of different styles, hint at ones that you really like. And that can give the man a lot to go off on for picking one out. No. Sorry, he isn't worth it. If he's feeling pressure after 5 years, he doesn't want to marry you. Sorry to say. I told my husband that 3 years would be enough time for him to figure it out, and if it isn't, then we would have our answer and break up. We've been together 5 years and married for 2 and are loving all of it. Next story 2. My husband has lied to me 3 times this week, that I know of. I am extremely upset, so I'm sorry if I seem all over the place. My husband has had a problem with lying in the beginning of our relationship. We've been together 4 y, been married for 3 y, he would lie to me about stupid stuff. I asked him what he ate for lunch, he said he just had some chips when he actually ate an entire sandwich, and I've had a discussion with him about it. It seemed to change for a while. But every so often he would lie to me again, and it just came down to me telling him that if I ask him something and he starts lying, just to say my bad, that was a lie and I didn't mean to, here's what actually happened, and I wouldn't get upset at him because he stopped it right there and took accountability, then proceeded. I know that it was mostly my bad in the beginning. Once I saw him continuously lie to me, I should have seen that red flag and ran before we even got married. But that's beside the point. Skip forward to last weekend. Him and I only have a joint checking and savings account because he has a problem with money. He got a piece of mail that was a new card from our bank. I asked him why he got a new card, because it's a plain card, and his joint checking card is a Star Wars theme, and he said because his Star Wars card was peeling, so he just ordered a plain one. Makes sense because mine's peeling too, and honestly thought it was a good idea. I should do that too. I didn't think nothing of it, until I was about to put the piece of paper the card was attached to in the shredder. The account number was different. I asked him why the account number was different. He told me he doesn't know and was looking at the paper with confusion. I asked him if he opened a personal account through the app. He said I don't know, did I? He opened his app and sure enough there was a personal account added. He then told me it was on accident, then he changed it saying it was the bank's fault and he was legitimately going to call the bank and chew them out. Then when I asked again, he told me that he opened it and said boo-hoo, I opened a personal account. Which whatever, I was upset because he blatantly lied to my face. He started gaslighting me saying why are you so mad? It's your fault for asking. If you had a suspicion that I was lying, then why did you ask me stupid questions and pretend you didn't know I was lying? I ended the conversation at that point and went downstairs because I didn't want to have a screaming match and wake our son. I was downstairs, reading my book, and he came down and asked me, so are you still all mad at me for something you caused? Fast forward to later that evening, he apologized and told me, I know it will be hard for you to forgive me, but I hope to earn your trust back so we can move on from this and be stronger. Second time, he was out of town for work, and went out to get dinner with his co-workers after getting done with the day. It was about 10 p.m. and I called him saying I was going to bed since it was pretty late. He wanted to talk for a few since we weren't able to talk all day. He's not allowed to be on his phone, like any other normal workday. I told him about my day, he told me about his and what he's having for dinner. He told me about how his co-workers are going shot for shot and now he's upset because he has to be the DD. I asked him if he had anything to drink and he said absolutely not. This morning he calls me while he's driving to location and says he's been throwing up all night, and has a raging headache. He told me it was because of the food he ate. Then I made a joke saying you probably got contact drunk from how many shots your friends had. I don't think he heard me correctly, and I guess he thought I was accusing him of drinking. He got super defensive saying I told you I didn't drink that much. Wait, what? You told me you didn't drink anything at all, and now you're saying you didn't drink that much. He started doing the usual thing he does and started gaslighting me, saying you're the reason I started drinking, you always get mad at me about everything, you can't be mad at me for lying to you because you're the one that kept fixating on if I drank or not, whatever. Third time was just a few minutes ago. I asked if he's called. We moved to a different state than his parents, his mom lately, because she hurt her knee and is in the hospital. He said no, I don't like talking to her. I call her to see how she's doing. She starts telling me about how happy she is that her son, my husband, has been calling her every morning and asking how she's doing, keeping her company, over the phone, etc. I haven't said anything to him yet about this because I feel like a broken record, and I don't want him to gaslight me anymore today. I am at my wit's end. He has a problem and I don't want to be a part of it anymore. He has shown me time and time again that he could care less about my feelings, and he doesn't respect me enough to tell me the truth about simple or complex things. What do I do? Where do I go from here? We have one child together, 10 mom, so divorce wouldn't be a clean cut if that makes sense. Everything else in our relationship is going fine, except for this constant lying and gaslighting. I am mentally exhausted with it and am willing to listen to any suggestions or advice. Sorry for such a huge post, I don't have anyone to vent to about this. Comment. Gururl. I was going to say trust is everything. But you have bigger problems here. You're being abused. By a weirdo creep man child by the sounds of it. You young. Get divorced. Don't put up with this BS for another minute. Also, I really liked your compromise that he could out his own lie without repercussions. That was a mature and reasonable response to an immature and unreasonable action. But also sounds like a conversation you'd have with a child, not a partner. That sounds so draining. God, your husband probably has some sort of childhood issues that lead to that behavior. Maybe confront him and ask him to get therapy. If that doesn't work, then maybe try his mom, maybe she can get him to listen. Have you tried telling him like you need for him to change that? Sometimes expressing our emotions to loved ones isn't enough and it can be sad, but I don't know, you already have a life together, so at that point you need to set the boundaries yourself. If he doesn't know how to listen, be direct and don't be too soft, because from what you've said you've been the most patient, and I think unfortunately it doesn't work. Does he want his child to be like that? What kind of example is he giving his child? It's not about making him feel guilty but to get him to take accountability for his actions. Yes, also I would try to write down what you want to say in that moment, such as your questions and needs, like in a piece of paper. Also, I do agree with the comment about your husband having childlike behavior. You're already married and you have a child, so I'm not gonna tell you to divorce because you don't seem like you would like that, so I would strongly suggest to stop being too soft, set boundaries, speak up, don't let things slide too easily because he will think it's okay for him to act that way. I'm actually sorry that you have to deal with that situation all alone. I hope it gets better. Yeah, he's either gonna change his deposit or he's going to be transferring money from the joint account to his. Which means less savings for birthdays or other holidays, car repairs, household emergencies, etc. Seems your husband forgot he's part of a team now and just wants to be a single man while having someone at home handling the domestic stuff. Your husband orders a secret card, goes out of town, doesn't call all day, lies about drinking, and you don't think he's lying about anything else? Maybe, maybe not. But if there's no trust, there's not much else but a lifetime of disappointment and wasted hours of sorting through lies. Life is too short to waste on his nonsense. I would have been gone while he was out of town. Then lied about it?